I was walking through the middle of a battlefield. All of a sudden, I felt a kick in my back. I landed right on the ground. As I was just trying to get myself back up again, I felt another kick, right behind my knees, back on the ground. Suddenly, there was a giant combat boot just pressing me down and making me one with the ground, and I did not have the strength to push back. Then, that same boot was on my face and just smashing it right into the ground. All of the dust was in my eyes and I couldn't see anything, and I just couldn't fight. I was ready to let go. This was a dream that I had, whether I was awake or asleep, for almost 1.5 to 2 years. It was a struggle to get out of that state when you feel like you just can't fight anymore. You just don't have it in you. Life has just beaten you down over and over again. And the question is why? What is life trying to teach you? Where is life taking you? This is actually something that I have dealt with on and off over the years. And over the last couple of years, it was the toughest. And what made it even tougher was the fact that I was doing it by myself. I couldn't find anyone around me that was going through the same experience to the level that I was experiencing it. So if you're going through the same, please reach out. So what made me get through this phase and get back up and come here and talk to you today? What I had was a very strong why. Why am I fighting this fight? Why do I get up every day and do this no matter how hard it is, no matter if I'm seeing the results that I want to or I'm not? First of all, faith is huge in this. Have the faith that you are going through what you are for a reason. Have the faith that God has your back. In 2011, I had been through undergrad. I've been out of undergrad for about 3 years. And I was really struggling to get my first job. I was doing all sorts of things. Like if you look at my resume, it's all over the map. And I was doing anything and everything. And I got to a point where I didn't know why everything was such an uphill battle. It seemed like no matter what I did, and the opportunities that I did have, there was always some level of obstacle around it. So in 2011, I decided I wanted to apply for graduate school. I wanted to go to business school. And I was writing my essays. And in one of those essays, the question was, why do you want to do an MBA? And so at this point, I could have just kind of given a fluffy answer, but I really sat with this question. And I thought to myself, why do I want to get an MBA? What says that I'm going to get an MBA, have a bunch of debt, and then come out and not have a job again, right? And so what I really did is I really sat with that question and I asked, why do I want to do this? Like, why am I pushing myself? And I also asked myself, what were the moments that I was happiest in my life? What was the moment where I would just get so excited and feel like I was in the zone? And there was 2 answers that came up. The first was when I'm creative, I'm dancing, I'm doing theater, love it. It would just light me up. And then the second thing was I remembered an experience a couple of years before that, when I was still an undergrad, when I worked in orthotics and prosthetics. Most of the patients that I saw, they had been wearing prosthetics for years. They knew the ins and outs of it. They were great. There was one patient specifically that I would say changed my life. He was about 2 years older than me. And the first day I saw him, I remember he was wheelchaired in by his mom. He was probably 6'4". We were kind of guessing because we didn't really know athletic build. But he had no life in him. It was like it was over. A couple of weeks before that, he had gotten into an accident and he had been amputated. And so for someone who is an athlete, losing a limb, for anyone, losing a limb is huge. So he was my first patient that I went from measuring to creating his new prosthetic leg, to having him come back in and actually put it back on him. And this was a first timer. And I remember the day specifically where he came back after his leg was prepared for it to be fit onto him. The whole office was empty. It was just me, my supervisor, and two of the ladies that worked in the office. The door was open. His mom was on my left. My supervisor was on my right. The two ladies in the office were watching from outside. And I was sitting on a stool in front of him. He was sitting in his wheelchair. And I remember I put the leg on him. I'm sorry, I still get emotional just thinking about this. I put the leg on him. He put his hand on my shoulder and he pushed himself up. And we all say that feeling of a chill running down your spine. That was that feeling. I looked up and his face just lit up. Everyone was in tears. And that was the moment I realized there is nothing bigger than serving. That was the moment I realized I had the opportunity to give someone a second chance at life. So in that moment, when I realized how big that was, how that felt, I thought about all of the other patients that would come in. There was one who was a gardener. He had 5 kids, and he didn't have an arm from his shoulder down. So he showed me how he would use his prosthetic arm that we had built for him to basically feed his 5 children. There was a woman in her 80s, very lively woman. She was also an above-the-knee amputee. She was so excited. She had just come in from her aquatic ballet with her friends, and she was going to come to this appointment. And then right after the appointment, she had a lunch date with her boyfriend. And I thought, what am I doing at 20? But this was a strong enough why for me. So when I went back to writing that essay, this was the man I wrote about. I don't know where he is now. I don't remember his name, but I think him every day. That memory and that knowing that I'm here to serve and I am here for the greater good was a big enough why for me to push through the worst of times. After I had that epiphany moment, my life changed. I went on a catapult ride where everything just took off all at once. I didn't do my MBA. I ended up doing my master's, which I had my reasons for making that decision. At the same time, I got a full-time job. And then one thing led to the next, and my career just took off. A couple of years ago, my life came back to a halt. And it took me back to that moment where I remembered this man. And that feeling of being able to give someone a second chance and remembering that I am here for something more. Every pain, obstacle, struggle that I've been through, all the good things I've been through, they're so I can serve a broader audience. They're so that I can understand what everyone is going through and how I might help them. And so over these last 6 years, it has been tough. I have torn my life down and started to rebuild it from scratch. That is not easy, and I don't have the biggest support system to be able to do that. And so that's why I do what I do. That's why I see the power in transformation and the power in being a support system for others who don't have that support, like I didn't. But that is a why that's strong enough that no matter how much I do not want to get up in the morning, I remember that this is why I'm here.